This week's episode was one of the more unique ones we've seen, and as a result I have to do something a bit different for this recap. Typically each episode has 3 or more plot lines that intertwine with each other, which I then break down into 3 distinct parts in the video. But this episode was one single narrative that followed Clarke on a journey into her mind, so this recap will go into a bit more detail and analysis than it normally does in an effort to be a bit more entertaining. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode. The show opens on Clarke, not Josephine, wandering through all her old memories, which are represented by drawings on the wall of her prison cell. At first it isn't quite clear what's happening, and when Clarke runs into her father you could get the impression that she is in an afterlife of some sort. However, her dad soon explains to her that she is in some sort of representation of her subconscious inside her own mind.
I don't understand. Am I dreaming?
This place is reacting to you. We're just in your subconscious, somehow. But beyond that, there are no answers for you here, Clarke.
It reacts to her thoughts and actions, and it also means that she's somehow still alive inside the brain that Josephine attempted to take over. This episode contained plenty of callbacks to past moments in Clarke's life, and most of them relate somehow to Clarke's mental state, her self-doubt, and the guilt that she's done at things in the past. Next, Clarke wanders around her subconscious and notices a door that she doesn't remember.
What the hell is going on?
But before she can investigate, the door to her cell opens behind her. There she runs into Allie, who explains how exactly she survived the mind wipe.
The neural mesh is still in my head. It must have interfered with the drug they used to wipe my mind.
Correct. And so you see, you exist. Because of me.
The last time we had to deal with Allie, she was attempting to assimilate everyone into the City of Light, but Clarke managed to stop her. However, Clarke's decision to destroy the City of Light forced everyone to face the reality that the Earth was about to be destroyed once again. That's a heavy decision that Clarke has to live with, and the whole City of Light event is the reason Allie is here in front of her now. In addition to explaining how she's still alive in her mind at the same time as Josephine, Allie also tells Clarke that there are some important memories in there that she wouldn't want Josephine to learn about. Allie helps hide the memory of removing the chip from Raven. After that, Clarke goes to investigate the door, which has a bunch of weird noises coming from behind it. We, the audience, recognize them as Josephine's memories, but Clarke has no way of knowing that. She opens the door and in walks Josephine, who explains the whole mind space thing and says that by opening the door, Clarke has made it much easier for Josephine to kill her.
This body is not big enough for both of us.
Josephine takes some time to gloat and explore Clarke's memories. She notices that one is missing and correctly assumes that Clarke hid it on herself. They get into a fight, which Clarke wins handily, and Clarke smashes Josephine's head in the cell door. However, Josephine shows up once again and explains that her mind chip backs up her consciousness and that she can't die in the mind space. However, Clarke can. So Clarke can either fight off Josephine for the whole night and maybe be killed, or Josephine can find out the memory and remove her from her brain in the real world.
Easy or hard way, Clarke. Either way, you die.
Clarke begins to see more projections from her past, like Octavia in the fighting pit and Maya in Mount Weather. They both don't have anything nice to say to Clarke, and it's clearly their representation of her self-doubt. Both of these people questioned her and at times directly opposed her, so here in the mind space they are the voices that make her question her actions. They do a pretty good job of throwing Clarke off her game, but eventually she gets a hold of herself and takes control, tricking Josephine into a trap.
Control. I'm in control. I have an idea.
Clarke finally realizes that she has full control in her mind space and takes advantage of Josephine's cockiness to get the jump on her. However, Josephine just kills herself and returns, but this time with a projection of Russell to help her kill Clarke. After some cat and mouse, Josephine finds where Clarke hid the memory, and it's where Finn died. I don't think I really have to explain how having to mercy kill someone you love in order to prevent them from being horribly tortured to death would leave a scar in your mind. That's the reason why this is at the center of Clarke's mind space, and the location where she hid the memory. Josephine tries to open the locked box the memory is in, but Clarke interrupts. She then tries to convince Clarke to just give up, and that things would probably be better for her friends if she wasn't in the picture.
Have you ever even once considered that the solution is to sacrifice yourself?
She uses the evidence of Clarke's projections to prove this, and to seal the deal, Josephine shows Clarke a memory of Bellamy taking a deal with Russell. If Clarke came back, everything Bellamy and the gang did to make a new home for their people would be in jeopardy. Clarke sees that Josephine is right, and unlike every other time she's been put in a situation where countless lives are at stake, she gives up the memory of how to remove the chip and any hope she had of survival. Just when all hope seems lost and Clarke has seemingly made peace with her choice, a projection of Monty shows up and tries to convince Clarke to fight back.
You call this doing better?
Monty has been used a lot this season as justification for why the group has done some of their actions. It's what Monty would have done could basically be a meme at this point. So he clearly represents Clarke's confidence and will to make things better. After a quick pep talk, Monty helps her break into Josephine's mind space to learn how to take her out. They check out a few memories, such as Kaylee killing Josephine, and Josephine killing Isaac, which as a side note also shows how the children of Gabriel got started, and eventually they figure out where the good ones, and by that I mean the bad ones, are located in her mind. Monty breaks into the room and there's a memory from before the Allegis mission of a guy killing himself in front of Josephine because she didn't like him. Josephine is not happy about her discovering this memory.
You never should have come here!
She kicks Clarke back to her own mind space and in a blind rage tries to kill her. But just when she has the upper hand, Josephine wakes up. We then cut to a scene of Russell and Bellamy discussing the terms of their deal. I should note that this is in the real world and not the mind space. During the discussion, Josephine enters the room, and Bellamy notices something. It turns out that Monty, and by extension Clarke, managed to figure out how to control Josephine in the physical space just enough so that she taps out a message in Morse code. The show ends with Bellamy decoding the message, and he concludes that Clarke is still alive. So this was a great Clarke-centered episode that gave us an opportunity to literally look inside her mind and develop her character. Moving forward, I'd imagine Josephine will continue to be overly cocky and underestimate Clarke and everyone else around her. But she does know how to remove Clarke from her head permanently, so we'll see how that goes. That's all for this week. Tune in next week for more recaps and analysis of the latest episodes of The 100.